It's a lot of finesse being shown by John Bakker here in Rival.
On any given day, he's one of the fastest blown boats in the country.
Hello and welcome to John Bakker's In the Shed video. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking to Mr. John Bakker himself. John, thank you for having us in the shed.
No worries.
For the people watching at home, can we learn a little bit about your history? So can you tell us, where did you come from?
Well, we're in God's country down here in Traralgon, so I'm sort of born and bred down here, lived here all my life, surrounded by lakes. We've got Hazelwood Pondage, Maggie Weir, where we just come from, the Gippsland Lakes, so great place to be, and 160 k's from Melbourne, which isn't too bad to, if you need bits and pieces that you can't get here. We're surrounded by power stations and so on, so that makes it very easy industry-wise. There's plenty of machine shops and fabricators and everything you could possibly want, so that makes it real handy. So that's, and I'm still here, so that's where I'm from and am. So yeah.
There's a big story behind all that, especially now that we're actually talking about you and your career behind boat racing. We were talking just off air before about some of your highlights and where you came from. Can we hear about that for us?
Yeah, sure. It was late 80s. I started racing. A friend of mine, and myself, we sort of enjoyed watching the races, and we'd get out to Glenmaggie and Hazelwood and Paynesville, and we get there pretty early because we like to sort of get a bit amongst it. Back in the day, Kevin Miller used to be part of the Nova team. He was, one of the main guys down at Glenmaggie. He sort of said, seen us around a bit and said, we'd offer help. He's put up speakers and would say, can I run the whole ladder for you, mate, and that sort of stuff. And he said, why don't you blokes join the club? I said, you can do that, can you? Because I didn't know you could do that without having a boat. So that got me involved with the boat club itself. And then, of course, from there, I wanted to get a boat. So always had a soft spot for Stevens boats. Back in the day, the tunnel runners were the thing. Locally built boats down by Psycho Marine in Melbourne. There was an ad in the Trading Post, said Stevens boat in sale. Wasn't a lot of money, race boat. Anyway, I thought, so my mate and I went down and had a look at it. And as it turns out, it was Mark Kruzik's boat. It wasn't a Stevens, but it looked like one. And we'd seen the boat race and perform with a big block in it down at Paynesville, so I was familiar with it. It was what I could afford at the time, so I bought that. Had a pretty healthy 351 tunnel ram thing that I used to run in the car, drag race a bit. I thought, I'll put that in the boat and see how it goes. And that's where it all started. I wasn't actually going to race initially, but because I was learning from it, I think Dan Cruzy came with me in it one day, and he goes, this goes all right, leans over and just holds the throttle flat out while I'm driving it and I'm just hanging on. And he goes, you should race it. And that's how I got not talked into it, but I thought, you reckon? Anyway, so my first race meeting was at Glenmaggie. It was a Bill Davis, was when Bill Davis crashed Tinker Toy. So that was my introduction to powerboats. And just went from there. Back then you could do clock starts and A grade and B grade. So obviously I was B grade. It's a funny story, like because I got the boat off Mark Kruzik and he'd got the little Stevens called Just Cruising at the time. I said, well, what do you got to do here? And he goes, well, what you got to do is we do a race and then you get your pole times. So I ran dead last because they all took off and I'm on all this white water going, what the hell, how do you do this? Dead last, so of course I was supposed to be first off on the clock. And he said, well, you got to take off at 8 seconds and whatever. So he said, you just park out in the lake and then watch the clock and go at your time. So I'm sitting there, he takes off, others take off. I thought, what are they doing? So I take off after him, come dead last again. And he goes, what are you doing? Wouldn't it start? And I said, no, it'd start. But I said, you said you've got to go on your time. He said, you've got to be at the finish thing at the time. Oh, well, I didn't know that. So anyway, they put me time back next, and then, so off I go, cracked the start perfectly. I actually won the race and did an extra lap because I didn't even know I won the race. And they're all stopped. So So that's how it all started. So it just went from there. Absolutely loved the people in the sport. Just learnt and watched and whatever, you know, like different boats and what they could do and couldn't do, and knew the boat I had wasn't right. Yeah, so that's sort of how it all started.
So that was obviously racing back in the day, back in the early 80s. Stepping forward a little bit, differences, you've obviously stepped up from the 18-footer into a 21-footer. We're looking at two rival boats here. Both of them are your design. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about the two rival boats?
Yeah.
And actually, where did the name Rival come from?
Oh yeah, well that's an interesting story too. So basically, how it all came about was at Paynesville, looking at different boats and so forth. Peter Mager in Obsession won the Paynesville Gold Cup with a 6-litre. The boat ran faultlessly, and he said to everyone the boat's for sale. So I finished up paying a deposit on the day. I actually borrowed money from other people to give him a deposit and what I had on me. But he said you can't pick it up until after the Derwent Gold Cup in Adelaide. So I went over there, watched him race it, followed it home, pulled the engine out, and I took that home. When I got it home, I found the thing was full of stress fractures everywhere, and I thought, well, I'll know a bit about fiberglass. I thought, oh, I don't know about this. And in the meantime, a couple of friends had the new Stevens TR2 V-bottoms, which were just a new thing out. And one of the fellas that had that was a friend, it was the original Psycho one, 18-footer. Anyway, for whatever reason, he just had to have this Obsession boat. So he gave me some money, plus his boat. And then I thought, oh, well, so, and the proviso was, I said, well, look, in the meantime, I bought those Gator moulds, which are off the Bruce Walker? Yeah, or John and Bruce Walker. Because I figured I was going to make changes to that and improve what I had. So anyway, so with that, one of the deal was that, oh, well, I'll sell you the boat, but I might want to, you know, take a mould off part of it, which I finished up doing. In the meantime, I had these original Psycho boat, and I thought, oh, well, I'm going to go racing with that, but I'm not going to obviously call it Psycho. So I'm thinking, what's a good name? So watching the news, watching the sport, and everyone's, you know, this rival team did this rival team did that. And I thought, that's a good name, because if I'm going to go building boats, and Stevens boats are the only boats in Victoria, well, I'll call them Rival. And that's how it come about. I made up a sticker, stuck it over the Psycho on the Psycho boat, and went racing with that for a few years, and then started building my own 18-footer.
So that's a bit of a history lesson behind the name Rival, really.
Yeah, well, that's how it came about.
Good bit of history,
Yeah.
Wonderful to learn about. Now, there's obviously going from an 18 to a 21-footer, this is all your design. Do you want to let us know a little bit more about the Rival hull?
Yeah, sure. So from the fin back, it was copied off the Bruce Everingham, the Shallow V, the Obsession boat, in the 18-footer, and then it was all grafted into the Walker moulds, which where the deck come from. Like, everybody seems to think it's a Stevens deck, but it's not. It's, that deck design was actually around prior to the Stevens deck. So it was, the 18-footer was a combination of the Shallow V part of an Everingham, fin back, the front. I made all sharper, because the two things I've found with the Everingham was it would wallow in the corners, and it was a couple of them had kited and flew over. They were very sort of flared in the bow. So I thought, well, to make it turn harder, I need a sharper point of entry. Also, where I was racing was Glenmaggie, Hazelwood, Yarrawonga, Paynesville, Epilock, all lakes. So I figured I need a boat with a sharper point of entry to handle it rough, and that's what I come up with. So that's where the 18-footer come along. When I decided to go bigger, because I had the 18-footer doing over 130 miles an hour in its day, and I thought, no, I want to go bigger with a big block, because I was finding at the time I was having issues, head gasket issues all the time with the small block once you start boosting it pretty hard and whatever. So I thought, well, I know what I've got. I'm going to start again and make a new plug for the 21. I thought, well, I'll make it. I worked out a few calculations actually, and it worked out 17% longer and wider, and then 14% higher. So it's a true 21 footer. The actual boat itself is 21 foot long, and plus the cab plate. So, and it's obviously wider because as you go wider in the hull, it goes wider in the wider at the bottom, it goes wider in the top. Plus, being higher, it goes out wider. So it's just proportioned up from the original one. And to my surprise, like I bought the that Donovan engine that was pretty famous in its time for being in the piece, and then it was in Rhythm. McCosker had driven it, Pete Smith had driven it, and they all said it's the most powerful thing they'd ever driven. I heard it came up, it was for sale, and it was in Queensland. So I finished up getting that, putting that in my 21 footer, and off we went. We went to Yarrawonga, got it going in 2000. Big field, you know, McCosker in his 21 at the time, and Walshy and the Loose Cannon and everyone else. I think there was 6 or 8 boats in it. And flag drops, so I just followed them, and I managed to stay easily with McCosker and Walsh to the turn. I hadn't reached the end of the accelerator yet, and everything was going happy. It felt like slow motion because the boat was exactly the same, except easier. So I go around the first turn, run up next to McCosker, thinking something's not right here. Anyway, drove around him, finished up, you know, starting to pull him. Walsh, he won, I came second. I thought, wow, how good's this thing? And I hadn't even really reached into the throttle. I thought, wow, I couldn't fold it. Anyway, I finished up that weekend. I finished up winning the Les Spears, and should have won the Terminus 2000, but got outdriven by Brian in the last turn, and forced me into third in the end. But so yeah, that was an experience. So that's how the 21 footer come along. So it's all my own idea, but based on what I'd created initially. So, you know, people think, oh, it's Stevens deck with every bottom. It's not. It's the shallow V of an early Bruce, and the rest of it's out of the Walker moulds, and the 21's just basically a carbon copy of that, but bigger. Yep.
Is there any reason why you haven't made other boats for other people?
Main reason is I don't want to pay. Like I've got a business that does pretty well, or has done pretty well, and it's importing and converting American vehicles. I've been doing that since the sort of 96, and it's easy. You put the car together, brand new car, they're happy, off they go, and might come back, get a second car and so on. With the boats, if you know, I've built I think 22 of the 18 footers and about I think 11 21s. A few were ski racing, but what I found is the customer would always come back, oh, it's not doing this, or how come yours does that, or whatever, and it's to do with maybe the way they drive, or the horsepower they got, or their setup they've got. So you finish up putting all this time and effort, mainly weekend efforts, and they're fixing and driving their boats and lending and propellers and all this other stuff, which eat into the time that I got to spend on my own boat. So hence, that's what stopped me from building, you know, when I started building boats, I was working full time at a paper mill, and I'd build a boat on the side, and then that was a bit of a cash bonus every sort of, you know, few months. Like I could actually put a whole boat together within 6 weeks. Well, there's one sitting there behind you, was boat number 7, and that boat was built, same thing, in about seven weeks from the time of deposit to the time the guy's throwing it away. And that's doing it part-time, all myself. So, yeah, anyway, so that's how that all come about. And so, yeah.
So, in your time, obviously, there's been advances in technology, going to the cell in the latest rival boat. The rival boat that's behind you has a open cockpit with a roll bar. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about the differences between obviously open deck and having a roll bar compared to a cell?
Yeah, well, firstly, it's a deflection bar. Because people, when I first put those in the boats, people were going, well, why would you want a roll bar in a boat? I said, no, it's actually not a roll bar, it's a deflection bar. And the whole idea is that, you know, if someone skips in the corner and manages to hit the boat, it's not going to hit the driver. The bar will take that impact, push the boat, you know, that and the engine, and deflect it. So it's actually a deflection bar. Worked well. We had a situation in Bundaberg where Nudo went a bit hot in the corner and bounced into Crossy, hit the bar, pushed the bar across, hit him in the shoulder. He continued to race, and you know, we had just a bent bar and a little bit of damage to the side of the hull, and that was it. So it worked perfectly. So that was the whole idea of a deflection bar, to protect the driver, but you could still, if something went wrong, you could fly out of it, and then your chute jacket should do the rest for you.
Compared to a cell, obviously you've driven both boats. How does it feel in the cell compared to the open deck?
Look, I was dead set against the cells. I'll admit that. Most people that have been around for a long time would know that I was dead set against it. And mainly reason being that I've been thrown out a few times myself, 2 or 3 times. And by the time I'd sort of stopped bouncing and I'm floating in the water, the boat was gone, so it was already sunk. So my fear was that in a cell, that how are they going to recover it? Like the Americans with their setups, it drags, the cell flies out of it, and it's a deacceleration device, and I get that, and they're probably racing in, you know, maybe 8 foot of water or something, but, you know, we're racing in deep water that's black at the bottom, and I thought, well, if you're strapped into the thing and take the impact of the boat and so on, what chances have you got? So I was not in favour of the cells originally. Plus, also, you know, a fellow competitor, he said to me one day at Dargle, he goes, how many times have you run into someone? I said, none. I was racing a lot longer than he was. I said, well, how many have you run into? He goes, 11 times. I said, oh yeah. And he goes, oh yeah, but they've run into me. I said, well, if you're going to turn 90 degrees in front of someone and they don't expect it, that's going to happen, isn't it? So, and that was another reason I didn't like the cells. I thought, well, when you mix and match them together with open boats and cell boats, different style of driving, they go in deeper into the corners, they can turn harder because they're strapped in, and so on. But so yeah, so initially I was against them, but you know, unfortunately with this boat here, when we lost Grossi at Yarrawonga, which everyone knows about, you know, there was a lot going on at the time, where in that particular year we lost 4 drivers in the same season. They stopped the open boats for a bit, and then they decided that, okay, highly recommended, but we'll let the boats run. And then of course that happened with Crossy. Threw a blade, spun the boat, flipped him out, and he got ejected very quickly into the water, so unfortunately his chute jacket couldn't do its job, and then we lost him. So I thought, oh well, you know, like, you know, that just shattered me, obviously. So then a couple of years later, I decided to, because the boat, even though it blew the deck off it and broke the transom in, the hull itself was still in one piece. So actually my kids said to me, why don't you fix it, Dad? And I go, it's a lot of work, you know. And anyway, it gave them some interest. They were in grinding and doing this, doing that, put it back in the mould, fixed it all up as a tribute to the sport. And we'd take it to Yarrawonga and run it on because we had crownies for Crossy on the foreshore there, and I'd take it, do a few laps and so on in it, and yeah, so that was my thing, you know, like I wasn't intending to go racing again myself, but that wasn't enough for me, even though I restored this. So, and I initially never stopped, I didn't jump out of the seat to, you know, like everybody thinks, oh, I retired from driving and let Crossy drive, but it was a sponsorship deal pretty much through someone to come on board that took an interest in what we're doing. We built a second boat, hence we had the Rival 1 and 2, and the theory was that Crossy would drive that boat, which was owned by the sponsor, and then I'd continue to drive this. And in the end it was a bit hard to manage 2 boats. With some changes to this one, it became the faster boat, so we just stuck with this. And he was the most, you know, everybody knows how good a driver Crossy was. Like, he drove it like he stole it. I mean, if he wasn't happy with something, he'd let you know, but he just absolutely loved it. and he was unbeatable. You know, I think we did 54 starts, and out of that, I think there was 3 DNFs, and every single one of them was a win. Every one of them.
Goes to show different driving style, different character. It was
just magic, absolutely magic. You know, confident in the gear, the boat. You know, it's a package. Like people go, oh yeah, but Crossy win with everything. Well, he didn't, because he drove other boats in between time, and you know he wouldn't win with them. But so it's a combination of everything. I learned a lot from that, from watching him drive it, seeing it from the bank, feedback. You know, it was great.
So
absolutely fantastic.
Seeing your own boat, obviously from the bank, you can understand how it sits on the water, being a driver, and also observing, you know, the differences, the boat characteristics, the way it turns, what it looks like, and feeling.
Yep.
What sort of engine packages are you running?
Well, all of them are the same pretty much. So the one in here is a little different in the sense that it's a Rodeck and it's 525 cubic inch. That's where we sort of started. I mean, the Donovan we had was an aluminium motor, that was 555 cube. So the engines I built down the track were all based off that, same stroke, or slightly more stroke, and bore combination, which makes it 565 cubic inch. Well, that particular engine was new when I built that in 96, and that's when Crossy started driving. And that's the engine we continued to run with when I came back with the sailboat. Had no idea it'd be anywhere competitive still. And to my surprise, when I got it going, how good it went. So, and then I've got, well, the one that we ran today is a fresh short engine, but I've pretty much got 2 complete turnkey engines and then another long engine. So, and that's for a maintenance program. So if you've got any sort of doubt whatsoever, I could just put another one in, get to the next race meeting, and then freshen the other one. So still running the same combination, ran back in 2006, which was on the bottom of the Mulwala and sitting in a shed for so many years. And, you know, it's just a very, very strong block and good parts and a good maintenance program.
As we all know, obviously winning a race meeting, it happens in this shed. That's where all your R&D is done. What about some gearboxes? Do you run different gearboxes between the boats, or are they all the same?
No, I've always run Argo gearboxes. I know Joe from Argo personally pretty well, and actually it's still the box that we're running today in the other boat's the same box he built for me. And I wanted to run a certain gear combination, and he said, well, we don't make that. So he made it for me. So the bottom shaft is actually all one piece. It's not a gear pressed on, and we're still running it today. So when they introduced whirl-away setups, I've had a little bit of trouble with that because it would knock the in and out of gear, would knock the driving edge off the dogs, and it would finish up jumping into neutral. Apart from that, you know, like if Crossy couldn't destroy it, it was good enough for me, and I've always stuck with Argo boxes. So Scotty Nine's he's just made me a new box with the same ratio, which I've got sitting in the other workshop there. That'll be going in very shortly. It's just I ran out of time to set that up before Glenmaggie this week. But and that's just basically the same thing, beefed up, billet. So yeah, been good. They've been run well for me.
So who builds all your engines?
The bloke you're looking at.
Do you want to give us a little bit of an idea of, you know, how long is it going to take you to screw an engine together?
It depends on what you have to do. You know, like if you're freshening an engine, you know, that's running well, but it's still got to go through the process of checking everything and so on and so on. So, you know, it might take you a day or two to pull it to bits and then start cleaning everything up and then go through the process of inspecting everything or crack testing bits and pieces and so on, and learn from how it's running, what's going on, and then put it back together. So take twice. So you could turn an engine over in a week if it's a good running engine. If you've got issues, well, you know, there's some machining I do and there's some other bits and pieces I do myself, but otherwise I've got to send it out. And but I've been fortunate enough because I've been doing it for so long. Some of the really good guys in the game who don't take on any new work still do work for me, which is great because same old story. You know, they become personal friends when you've known them for 20 or 30 years. So yeah, no, I'll screw them together. You know, this shed's, you know, my home shed, so I'll do it after hours or whatever. I don't bring my hobby to work for a number of obvious reasons. And yeah, I can just do what I want to do in here without having to be interrupted or distracted.
So obviously, you know, you're looking after the whole engine package, the boat setup and everything. There's got to be a crew around you. There's got to be people. How big's your crew?
Look, it varies a little bit. Over the years, I've had, you know, a few different guys along the way that helped out and so on, and get, you know, I mean, obviously, as much as it might look like a professional sport, we try to be as professional as we can, but there's no big money behind it, so it's all out of your back pocket. So, you know, you got to try to provide a great atmosphere for the guys to want to come, because they're not paid to come. So, yeah, so currently there's, you know, a couple of people that are standing by me. One's Ricky's over there, who's helping us out today. He's taken an interest in it. He's a friend, we've you know, been buddies for 20 odd years, and been not really around the boats, more around the cars, but he's come along and enjoying it, and been a great help. Yeah, and anyway, Greg Smith, he actually was bleeding. He couldn't be with us today. Well, if he wasn't helping out, I probably wouldn't get to half the meetings. He comes in, he cleans everything up, he sets everything up. He devotes a lot of his spare time here to make it happen. So yeah, he's been terrific. He's come on board in the last couple of years, and he's a racer himself, so he sort of understands it all. It just makes my life so much easier to get it going. As Rochelle yelled out, Dennis, he's sitting over there. Dennis has been around the boats, racer himself, very, very talented engine man, and very, very good with listening to engines, how they're running and tuning and so on. So I get a lot of help from Dennis in the sense of figuring out tune, because that's the biggest thing with these things. If you can't get a tune right, it'll kill it, you know. And to make a tune work on a boat, especially because these setups are really designed for drag racing, you know, not really throttling, and like first shoot you might be flat out, second lap or third lap you might be going the same RPM at half throttle because the water's so loose and so on, and you know, to make that work mechanically is very, very difficult. So to have someone with that experience and can listen to it and hear it and bounce stuff off is fantastic.
Talking about race meetings, obviously today we've just come back from Glenmaggie Gold Cup. It was a really good race meeting. I can still see, you know, your current rival boat is still packed away in the transporter. Where are you going to be attending next?
Oh, well, as it turns out, we had a win today, which is really good. You sort of measure yourself by your competitors, and the Blue Ramsey boat's been going really, really well. He's been sort of, you know, leading the way. You know, I mean, Brett Shepherd's been, you know, been niggling his heels a bit, but I was hoping he would have been here this weekend. But anyway, I sort of wanted to see where I stacked up with that, because we've made a fair improvement on the control of the boat out of the corners, and we're a bit on top of that now. It's where I would lose it. I seem to have the speed, but I just couldn't get it. You know, lap times were no good because it took too long to get onto it. So yeah, I was pretty happy to round him up around the outside and take the win today. Unfortunately, in the heat of the cup, I made a massive blue. Didn't realise I got the corner that quick, and then had to just take some evasive driving to not run into Tate. I thought if I tried to make the corner, I know I would have possibly ran into him, so I turned away from him and then tried to turn back in to avoid any hydros that might come around the outside, and just messed it right up. So anyway, fortunately it landed the right way and didn't break anything, and we were able to get it going again for the displacement race for the Allen Hall.
So coming up in December, are you going to head back to Glenmaggie?
Yeah, well, as it turns out, the Allan Hoare now, it's not a one-day thing, it's a series, so that's another round of that. So, and from what I've been told, Wild Child's coming, Shepherd's coming, and Ramsey again, and so on. So I want to run the top competitors as best I, to know where I stand in it. So yeah, I'll definitely be there.
So talking about the best of the best competitors, obviously in January, you're going to be racing against the best of the best.
Yep.
In 2 locations. So last time, going back a couple of years, Chris organised the Bad Boat Challenge with obviously people from America and all that sort of stuff, and some of the best blown alcohol in Australia. Would you like to reminisce about that?
Sure. Yeah. No. That was the year I built the new boat. 2018. I think that it started January 2019. And I said to Chris, what's the go with this show? He goes, oh, well, you come racing again? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, you need to have a spare engine, you need to be fully licensed. So, and then if that's the case, you can run, rightio. So I got it going, I think in December, practiced, went to Epiloc, raced Epiloc. Then I took it to Sydney for a club day at Windsor, ran there, and then Glenmaggie. So managed to get my 3 meetings in and my signatures, had the second engine, and off we went. So anyway, first race I got into, and at that time, same thing, I was trying to work out how to get on this boat. Like between the open boat and the capsule boat, you can't really feel the torque of the boat when it wants to torque over. When you're sitting on the left, you feel it lift up, and you can automatically put a bit of left wheel on and you can try to control it. In the open boat, it'll lift up, roll over, in the sailboat, roll over, and by the time you feel it roll over, it's too late. You've got to get off it. So trying to work out how to get off the line, and anyway, so got to practice, did me hot laps, whatever. First race, was always interested in a race against an American competitor. And I was in 3, I think Duff was in 4, and a couple others 1 and 2. First race, and as I was going up to the line, I tried something different and it took off. Straight, I thought, you beauty, So I thought, righto, don't stuff this up. So I come down the chute, took off, got out in front, ran the first turn, finished up winning the race by possibly, I don't know, quite a bit. And was absolutely stoked. So my first race back after 12 years of not racing, same engine combination I had back in 2006, whole new boat, and won my first race. I thought, how good's that? And against the Americans as well, which was, so I was pretty happy with that. Next race after that one, I got pushed out wide, finished up 3rd, went out again, won that one. So at the end of the first day, I was going really well. I should have gone into the last race, but they'd said I hadn't made it on points or something, so I hadn't turned the boat around. Then they come up and said, oh yes, you actually did. And I said, well, it's too late now, I haven't put fuel in it, haven't turned it around, whatever. And then off we went to Berry, and Berry was a bit of a disaster for us. Yeah.
So John, going back to Berry, last time you were there with the Bad Boat Challenge,
Yep.
do you want to step us through, reminisce a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that was a bit different for us. So we left Sydney, the boat was all going. We actually went to Mildura. I've got a friend that's on the river in Mildura, old Freckle. He's crewed for me plenty of times, and good bloke. So anyway, we go there to go through everything, so do all the maintenance on the boat, which we did. And the beauty of that was I could back it down his ramp and give it a run on the river, which we did. Then we get to Berry. It was years ago I ran Berry. I think I've only raced there once, years ago. So what we finished up with there was good starts. No problem at the pit end, but the bridge end turn was a fairly wide turn, and up to that point of time I hadn't actually sort of ran around a wide turn under acceleration and then head off after that. So what was happening was we're getting a massive lean out as we'd go around the corner on throttle, and then when I go to take off, it actually blew the burst panel or blew the blower off it. And anyway, so we had those issues. So we had a couple of really good races. We blew the blower off a couple of times, managed to put it back together and get it going again. I think every start I had, I was out in front of the first turn. I can remember one of the American boats leaning on me big time in the turn because, you know, I'm learning capsule boats, I'm learning this new boat, what it can and can't do. And yeah, you know, like I was surprised, like he come up next to me in the turn, leaning on me that hard that I thought, geez, I hope this thing doesn't let go, because he's, I mean, you could almost, if you did have a cockpit, you could touch his deck, leaning on that hard. Anyway, so I learned a lot from that, and I thought, rightio. But we were working all weekend to keep it going, which we did. So we managed to pretty much run nearly every race, but didn't finish them with blower go or burst panel or whatever else. So what I learned from that is that the tune-up we had in it worked well on a stop-start type arrangement, tight course. And then we went on a wider course, we had tuning issues. A lot of that was to do with I initially put the blower facing backwards for obvious reasons. With the sailboats, you will run a lot of times in spray, but I just could not get that tuned properly that way. So in the end, turned the blower around, went back to the tune-ups that I'd ran before in the open boat, and then made up a new cowl to sort of protect it, and then that started all coming together after that.
So out of all the racetracks that you've been to, what would be your most favourite?
Love Berry, a couple of reasons. Good starts, long straights. You know, I don't mind having a wide turn one end, tight turn the other. That sort of mixes it up a bit. But the pit arrangement's fantastic. You know, you're back into that pond, and it's pretty much like being in a pit area. And then you drive out through the bank, you know, where everyone's standing and carrying on and cheering and clapping and so on. It's just cool, you know. And then when you come off the course, drive back in again, it's like driving into a pit lane. So I think that's fantastic, that setup. And I do longer courses. I sort of, you know, make it up at the other end. And yeah, so short of that, I do like Dargles for the exact same reasons. And I've only just recently ran Taree, and that was fantastic, Taree. Like, that suited me boat perfectly. Big long straights, nice good long turns, good lead up to the start. So yeah, you know, like I enjoy the longer courses where a lot of guys don't. You know, they think, oh, well, your engine won't last, but I think if it's geared right and set up right, and it should. There shouldn't be any reason why it shouldn't, you know, so yeah.
John, can you tell us a little bit about the maintenance program that you do after a race meeting?
Sure. Depending on how it pulls up after a meeting, I guess it's pulled up fine this time around, engine-wise. Boat-wise, we had a big whoopsie in the heat of the cup. So with that, we've done all the checks we can on the day, but we'll just go right over the boat and make sure that there's no hidden issues that might have arose from that mishap. Engine-wise, we have standard routine, leak down, tappet check, filters, looking for any sort of obviously issues, or you know, we'll go study the data to see if anything's come amiss. And then it's really just going over nuts and bolts and bits and pieces to make sure, you know, with boats, a lot of stuff comes loose after a bit, you know, they get a fair pounding. And then from there, you know, obviously wash and clean, go through the transporter of what consumables we've used, top all that back up, give that a clean as well. And it stays out of the transport until we're good to go. In this case, you know, if we turn around and go back to Glenmaggie, it's only a few weeks away, so we don't need to really pack everything up as such. You know, we can just keep it the wheels turn, ready to go. Yeah, short of that, you know, like it depends on what you find. If you find something, well then you go investigate a bit further. So you never know, you know, you can think these things are so temperamental, you think it's all happy and good, and then might find something somewhere, and then you've got to go looking for it, or put a fresh engine in and go again.
So coming up to your next race meeting, obviously you're going to go back to Glenmaggie. There's a few other displacements that you want to race, and then going forth into January to see, obviously there's going to be a lot more people that are going to be there at Chris's race meetings. Is there someone that you're looking forward to obviously racing?
Oh look, I like racing everybody. You know, and what's kept me going, like if I'd come back out into this game after 12 years with engine stuff that I put together back in 2006 and it was way off the pace, I wouldn't be racing today. But what's kept me going is I seem to be able to run them down, you know, so, but just could, you know, and go into the turns okay, but just had a lot of trouble coming out. So we've made some changes to the cab setup on the back, that's fixed that problem. And now the boat, instead of the boat driving me, I'm now have some control of the boat. So now I think my lap time's going to be a lot better. So, you know, Brett Shepherd's been super consistent. And as we saw, you know, Tate Ramsey's going really, really well, driving brilliantly, fast, doing everything right. So, you know, there's been a few times where I could catch Brett, but just couldn't get round him, or he'd get going again after the corner. I could catch him again. So I think, well, the fact I can catch him, I think now I should be able to get away from him. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll having a crack anyway. And then same Chris Palmer, everyone, you know, he's going hard. Different style of sort of driving than a lot of us. It's sort of just absolutely blasts out of the corner and doesn't lift. And yeah, but same thing. I've gone around with him in Tassie a couple of times and he'd be gone, and the next thing I'll catch up a bit. So I'm thinking now with a bit more seat time, some improvements and a lot of 1%ers that we've done with the boat, I reckon we've got a bit of a chance to probably, you know, get you know, catch these guys or give them something to think about. So
knock off the boss.
Yeah. So look, you always measure yourself against your competition, and at the moment, you know, both those guys, or the three guys now, are going really well. So, I mean, look, there's others that are improving as well and coming up through the ranks, and everyone seems to be going better. So, you know, the Culprit boys are running reliably and fast as well, and young Nathan's doing really well. So, you know, you can't really pick it now. It comes down to smooth lap times and pole positions. Like for me, the longer course the better. Short, tight courses, I'm going to struggle, but that's the way my boat was designed. It's a V-bottom, shallow V, but it's built for lakes so much more so than the rivers. So those two race meetings are going to be on the rivers. So, you know, I might struggle a bit at Windsor, and I might make it up at Berry, but anyway, what I will do is do my best.
That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Do your best, that's what it's all about. Comparing a 21-footer to an 18-footer, what do you reckon the corners are like?
Well, what I found, especially with a sailboat, like the cornering is unreal. Like when it's locked on the water, like if you run in too deep, it's a whole different scenario. But if you're set up for the corner, you can tip it in pretty hard. Like the hardest I've been tipping this one in, which surprised me, was running against the red taxis, everyone calls it. I was running around the outside of him and tipping it in as hard as he was, and coming out the other side on a tight course at Raymond Terrace there, and coming out next to him on the other side. And I mean, those little Evercraft boats turn really, really well, as everybody knows. So to be on the outside even and keep tight, and even with that, you know, I got pole one and got around in pole one without a problem in front of the rest of the field. I got to the first turn first, and you know, Brett was in that one, which unleashed and so on, and of course he got away and run him down again, he got away again. Yeah. So, but what I'm finding, like, yeah, generally, if I had a sailboat 18-footer, it probably would do the turn harder again. I mean, you look at the 6-litre boats, obviously, you know, they do turn really hard, but I think for a 21-foot boat and how with a sharp point of entry, it hangs on really good. So yeah, no, I find you can turn it a lot harder because you're strapped in. Yep.
Beauty of a sail.
Definitely.
So John, since the creation of the new 21-footer, which is still currently in the transporter, have you had any interest in that sort of hull yet?
Oh yeah, look, I have. So the hull itself is exactly the same as the open boat. It's set up slightly different because obviously in the build or the setup process, I wanted to work out the balance of this one to that one, and anyway, but essentially the hull, it's out of the same mould. when I built the cell and the deck and so forth, I moulded everything with the view of being able to reproduce it. So I've got moulds for all the cows, everything. It's not a one-off. But a couple of reasons, like I have had people ask me. So the problem is it's expensive to build one, a lot of hours, and which I don't have. I'm a bit time poor because running my own business and this and that, whatever, and racing myself and so on. You find that where do you find the extra hours to put into these things? And like if you're not getting paid to do what you do, it's hard to do it. So look, I've had some people ask, can I borrow the moulds? And well, why don't you build others? And I said, well, to lend the moulds a bit silly because I put all that time and effort and development into it. Why would I want to give it to a competitor for nothing, sort of thing? But look, I'd build them, but as long as it's worthwhile, like I've come out of ski racing as well. I ski raced for a few years with one of my boats and so on. And you look at the ski race guys, they'll spend what it costs to set up a boat, no qualms. The circuit boat trend is sort of, they have to spend the money on the engines because that's just the way it is. But they seem to think, a lot of them are running 20, 30-year-old boats that are still running around and just can't seem to justify the cost of what it costs to build a decent sailboat. Well, that particular boat's got a lot of carbon fibre construction in it. It's all hand laid, and it's just hours and hours. Like cost-wise, initially when I built that, including all the time for my guys, because obviously we timesheet everything and everything's sort of allocated and so on. Without any of my time at all, it ran into nearly 300,000 with just mainly just hours, because you've got to remember, you've got to build a plug, then a mould, and then a part for every piece in it, and there's like, you've got your hatches on your decks, you've got the roof hatch, you've got your dash mould, you've got the cock, the monocoque, and then it just goes on and on and on and on. So, if it's a hobby, not a problem, but to do it as a business, unless it's real money, it's too hard. So, and right at this point of time, like I wouldn't want to build one for someone until I'm totally happy with it. I have been super happy with how it runs in a straight line, but getting out of the corners up till now, it's been a bit of an issue. And also, while I'm racing myself, I don't really want to build one for a top competitor, because as you can see here, it's all done. I build the engines, put it together, fund it all myself, and I don't really want to build competition for myself just now. If I retire from racing, I'll be more than happy to support someone else or build for someone else, but I'm certainly not going to build it for nothing, or take up, time that I don't have.
So looking at the transporter, like there's only one rival sticker on there. There's plenty of room for obviously sponsors or any other businesses that are welcome to join in.
Yep.
Do you have any sponsors?
Oh, look, no, I don't. I've never really gone to seek sponsorship, possibly because more so I'm promoting my own business in a sense, and also depending on where I am or what I'm doing, I didn't sort of think if I've had a major sponsor, then they may want to, so can we have the boat here, or can we you're going to this meeting, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, and so on, and I can't 100% guarantee where I'm going to be through my business and so forth, because at the end of the day, it's a hobby for me, a hobby that I absolutely love, but it's not everything. So, I certainly could do with sponsors. The amount of fuel and oil and bits and pieces we go through, or even just, like support, or, I'm happy to support businesses that might want to advertise on it, not a problem. Like, I just thought, well, as a blank canvas as it is, keeps people thinking, I suppose, and, sort of coming to the end of my business time anyway, so I'm not particularly wanting to promote my own business, because we're sort of coming to retirement time, so so there's probably no real reason. Sponsors are welcome if they want to approach me, that'd be great. Every cent helps. But there's no real reason apart from in the early days I just didn't want to have to be committed. If they said, oh look, you know, if it's an autobahn or something, can we have the boat and fire it up out the front of autobahn on this Saturday? And I'm thinking, oh shit, I'm not going to be here this Saturday. And so that would be the only, you know, reason. And I thought, well, if there's no benefit for the sponsor that I can give them, and up until recently we haven't had yourself and so forth, putting it on, you know, a stream to see it. So you'd be lucky if you got 2 minutes of news time. So why would someone want to put signage on something like this that are not going to really benefit from it much? So that might be the other reason, you know. But certainly, yeah, it'd be good, but any support's good support.
So with the transporter, have you been finding accommodation and, you know, taking the family to race meetings a little bit easier?
Oh, way easier. Like, yeah, it's a bit of an effort to load it all up and so on, but it just sits where it is there, like, hooked up to that truck. That's all it sort of does, and the way it works, the boat rolls out and we work on it over there in that corner with gantry there to, you know, I know you can't see it on the camera, you might see it if you pan around, but the good thing is you go to the meeting, everything's there. You don't have to pack it up and unpack it all the time as far as tools go and parts and spares, and you can add to it as you go. If you think, geez, you know, we didn't have this. So we've pretty much got everything we could possibly want and need to fix or get through a weekend. And then when the boat's out, it becomes a fantastic place for the girls and that to sit there, and the fridge is there, jugs on, whatever, can have a coffee. You can sit and look out the side of that window there and watch us working away on the boat and interact with us, which is great. So it just makes life a lot easier. And the other big thing too is if you're getting accommodation somewhere, there's always a worry leaving a boat in the car park under a cover, whereas it's all locked up and alarmed, so you know nothing's tampered with or so on. So there's a number of reasons it works really, really well. And you know, if the weather turns bad, we'll just sit in there and put the heater on and talk about whatever, and it's very, very comfortable.
John, we're still in your shed at the moment. You've got a few lovely toys around here. I can see that you're a collector of other types of motorsport.
Oh, yes and no. Like, obviously, you know, into cars and so forth. So I've had a few cars over the years. There's still some more at work, but because the shed started filling up with boats and boat stuff. But yeah, look, you know, it's the old story. You get bored with one thing, and I probably started collecting some of these cars when I wasn't racing. Yeah, but I don't know. You know, it's good to just have them, and you know, you only live once. So nice day, you can take the car out for a run, or one of the other cars. It's a bit of history behind it. Like the GMC here, it's a 55 pickup. You know, that sort of GMC was the main vehicles that we were selling. Like, where's your current one? And there's an old one. You know, so yeah, and you know, HQ, I had like a XY Falcon as well, and I finished up, always wanted a General Lee, so I bought one of them out from the States and had that for a number of years, and a cop car. I've still got the cop car. I've got another Corvette at work, and just, I don't know. But the boats is what really does it for me. Like these sort of things, you get out on the road and put your foot down and someone videos it, next thing she's impounded. So, you know, at least you can take the boat out on the lake and go for a test and go as fast as you want, and might get a few noise complaints, but that's about it. So, yeah, boats always been the passion, but yeah, but it's nice to have a few cars too.
Always is. John, I'd really like to thank you for your time tonight.
No worries.
Having us in the shed, and I hope a few people got to learn a little bit more about yourself, and we look forward to obviously seeing you back at Glen Maggie in December, and obviously the big thing is seeing you coming first in January.
Oh, well, it'd be good to back it up. Look, thanks a lot, Scott. It's I've watched a few of your podcasts, mate, or whatever, you know, these video things, and it's fantastic. Like I probably know a lot of history of the other competitors and races, but it's great, you know, even for my kids to be able to watch that, or, you know, and say, oh, okay, so that's what he does, and oh, that's the history from him. That's interesting. Didn't know that. You know, I mean, a few people post some old photos and videos of the boat racing back in the day, and someone said to me, geez, you've been racing for a while. I said, well, '88 is when I started, you know, and you know, you pop up here and pop up there. So it's interesting. It's great to do this sort of thing because at least people that might see it at the race meeting would have no idea what's behind it. They might think it's a big corporate deal like you might see at V8 Supercars or something, but it's not. You know, it's blokes like myself in the backyard with an interest in going fast on water. So yeah, no, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to let anyone know what's behind it, and yeah, it's fantastic.
Beauty. Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks, Scott. Good on you.